Thank you for tuning in to the Patricia Show. My name is Patricia. Please press like, subscribe, and share. Share this audio with someone who you may think need it. Now, we're going to talk about the Gospel of Judas. Now, this was also found. This was another gospel that was found. Back in 1970, it was found, buried underneath the ground. And I think they didn't interpret everything in it because the papers and everything was so fragile until they didn't even get it translated until 2006 is when they got it. So they found it in 1970, but it took until 2006 for them to get everything translated. And because again, when they would touch the paper would disintegrate, and paper were extremely fragile. I can't think of the name of the paper they found it on. And it was, whatever language it was in. I think it had to be translated a couple of times before they got it translated into English. And then it was finally, I think, ready in 2006. So that took a long time to translate everything. Okay, so we're going to talk the same thing. We're going to go through to talk about why this wasn't put in the Bible. Now, this is really some deep teaching, this that I'm fixing to tell you, because this is nothing like you have heard before. If you're not familiar with these gospels, this gospel is the direct information, the words of Jesus being spoken to Judas. Okay. So in these Gospels, it talks about how Judas was the only disciple of Jesus who really understood him, and that his act was not an act of betrayal, but instead it was an act of releasing Jesus so that he can return back to his original self, which was light, and he could return home. And they're going to talk about all of this. So I'm just telling you, this is not what you've been taught. So it might be like, what is she talking about? Or that is really way out there. But I'm going to tell you what I have found. And you are welcome to go and look up this gospel for yourself. You will be able to look it up on Google or Chat GPT. And it's the Gospel of Judas. I always pronounce his name wrong, but it's Judas, the Gospel of Judas. Okay, so why wasn't it included in the early teachings of the church? Because it didn't teach the authority of the church. It didn't teach. It taught. It didn't teach the authority of the church. Yeah, it taught the authority of yourself. It didn't teach what they were saying about Christ. It taught that everybody has Christ and Christ's divinity. And it definitely did not teach about the fallen angel and about God the way the Bible did. So let's get into this. Okay, so so as I said, it was true. It was found in the 1970s. I guess not exactly, sometime in the 70s. It was found in Egypt. It was translated in 2006. So that was a long time by the time they got it translated. Okay, so let's get into this. Jesus reveals hidden knowledge to Judas. This is what it opens up with. Okay. The sacred account of the revelation that Jesus spoke in conversation with Judas during a week 3 days before his celebrated Passover. A week, it says a week, 3 days, but I guess it's supposed to be a week, probably a week and a half before his celebrated Passover. This opening tells us it is not public teaching for the crowd. It is private initiation, a hidden dialogue where Jesus shares some cosmic secrets about creation, light, and the true divine realism. So it opens with Jesus laughing at the other disciples. When Jesus appeared on earth, he performed miracles and great wonders for the salvation of humanity. But since some walked in the way of righteousness, while others walked in their transgressions, he called the 12 disciples and began to speak with them about the mysteries beyond the world and what would happen at the end. When he came to his disciples, they were offering prayers of thanksgiving over the bread. Jesus laughed. The disciple asked, "Why laugh?" Jesus replied, "You are not doing this because of your own will, but because it is through this that your God will be praised." He meant that they were worshiping a lesser God, the creator of the material world, not the invisible, true Father of light. This laughter represented, So, the next one. Judas is the only one who understands. Step away from the others, and I shall tell you the mystery of the kingdom. This is what Jesus says to Judas. It is possible for you to reach it, but you will grieve much. Jesus separated Judas from the others because only Judas is spiritually advanced enough to understand the divine the divine origin of the soul. The others see only the flesh. You will sacrifice the men that clothe me. This is the most famous line. But you will exceed all of those, for you will sacrifice the men that clothe me. Jesus here explains that Judas will help him shed his physical body, the garment of flesh, so that his divine spirit can return to the light. This means Judas' acts of betrayal was not treachery, but obedience to Jesus' will, a spiritual sacrifice to free the Christ light from material bondage. The next one, the cosmic vision of light and the false God. Jesus showed Judas a vision of the world of the universe filled with stars and angelic beings. He says, the stars that leads the way is your star. This reveals Judas' cosmic role is fulfilling destiny. Jesus also described how lesser angels created the human body, tapping divine spark in matter. 6. The true God beyond creation. Jesus says, no person born of mortal woman will see me, for I have come from the luminous realism. The true God, this means the true God, according to the gospel, exists beyond all material creation, and only through inner knowledge can one ascend to the light? Jesus tells Judas that the soul who gained this knowledge will be freed from the false world of the ruler, the world of matter, which is the earth. Then this is how the text ended. There was other stuff in between. I'm going to get into that. But this is how the text ended. Let me check before I get into that to make sure that I have enough time on this particular. Yeah, maybe I do. Maybe I do have enough time to get into this because, my says I don't want to keep you long. That's why I like to get to the point. I only make my videos 15 minutes long. So here are the endings. Their high priest mumbled because he had gone into the guest room for his prayer. But some scribes were there watching closely in order to arrest him during the prayer. For they were afraid of the people since he was regarded by all as a prophet. They approached Judas and said to him, "What are you doing here? You are Jesus' disciple." Judas answered them as they wished, and he received some money and handed Jesus over to them. The gospel ends abruptly with not condemning of Judas, showing that his betrayal was his final obedience to divine instructions. Now, isn't that something? Now, we haven't even gotten to the deep part. Because, that is, interesting, really interesting, because it's definitely different from what we were taught. But, honey, we ain't even gotten to the deep part. On part 2, I'm going to reveal to you what Jesus revealed to Judas. So in part 2, because I don't have time to get into it in part 1, Jesus revealed how man was created, how the lower gods created mankind, your body. But your body was only as clay, and they couldn't make it move. So then they had to call on God Almighty. And then God put a divine spark into you, which is the light. So your body is really composed of two things, the lower world and the upper world. And you have to fight the lower world, which is your temptation, your greed, your jealousy, stuff like that. You have to fight that part so that you can arise into your upper world, which is divine light. And when you have reached divine light, you are free. Now, when I explain it like that, it makes total sense. So I'm going to read it exactly as Jesus said it on part 2. But I wanted to explain to you a little bit of what he's saying. So when you get, and I'll re-explain this in part 2. So when you, can you see that your lower self is the devil? Like people that's even on drugs, it tempts you to constantly, get drink or constantly use drugs or constantly overeat or to talk about your fellow man or whatever darkness you do is because of your lower self, the human body. That is what they're calling the lower self. But once you get up to the divine self, once you seek the kingdom of heaven within, then you won't do those things. Now, so then it tells you, if you go within to seek the kingdom of heaven, your purpose is to rise against the flesh, the darkness, the devil of you, to rise up above that. Once you rise up above that, then there you are in the light. Nothing can bother you in the light. All of the darkness in the world cannot come against you in the light because the darkness is scared of the light. Isn't that beautiful? Then we could see why we came here. This is our purpose here. So I'll see you next week on part 2.